are recording. So so Stuart, if you'd like to start, please do.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say welcome to everyone to this Back to School Summit during this COVID distance learning time. And if you're in California, which most of us are in this group, we are trying to survive the fires that, as many of us know, have impacted a serious number of school districts, with nearly all of those being small districts throughout California. Some have lost their schools completely at this point. But it is really very cool to be able to have all of these folks together that represent Arizona, California, Nevada, and Utah to share some back to school concepts. Like I said, I'd like to see a little more people on this, but if you go through California right now, a lot of our folks are extremely busy with so many things, including evacuations. But so I'm Stuart Packard. I'm the superintendent of Buttonwillow School District, which is in Kern County. I said earlier to some people that Bakersfield is one of our suburbs. We're a small town of 1,200. And so one of the goals of SSDA is for small school districts in California to start working together more closely with small districts, rural districts, throughout the 49 states. And we're very fortunate to have Alan, who I'll introduce in a second. But we want to work with these states to unite on our issues that really reflect on advocacy and expand resources for our teachers and students. We think it's going to be a good start. I was already talking to Tim, who is not able to be with us today. We want this to be the beginning of something that we may be able to do a little more frequently throughout the year. The webinar is a little bit different in the sense that it's called an Ignite format. Every presenter will have about 5 minutes to present on their idea. All of the information that people share will be completely available on the SSDA website after this, so you will be able to reach people for questions, concerns, and all of that. We have probably about 13 or 14 presenters today. And before I get into that, I'd like to welcome Alan Pratt, who I said a few minutes ago is like my new best friend. We've known each other for about 30 minutes, who is the executive director of the National Rural Education Association, and he's calling in from Tennessee. Alan's done so much for our schools throughout the United States, and it's a pleasure to introduce him. So Alan, go ahead and tell us a little bit about NREA and what it can do for all of us working together.
First of all, Stuart, thanks for the invite to Tim, and I hope he's recovering well. And the whole, our state affiliate in California, which is SSDA, and then also our Arizona Rural Schools Association, which is an affiliate of ours as well. Our thoughts and prayers go out to our districts in California that are battling the wildfires and the issues that are, you're facing, especially jumping on the call and hearing about funding issues. You could close your eyes and just listen, and you could just pick a rural state and you could hear the same argument about rural funding. So that's kind of across the board. But it's a pleasure to be here. NREA is the oldest education affiliate in America. It's founded in 1907. We have 42 state affiliates, and hoping to add Nevada and Utah as we move forward. We're based on the campus of University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And really, since pre-pandemic, we were working on rural broadband issues, teacher shortage issues, and rural funding. And during the pandemic right now, we're working on rural broadband issues, rural funding, and teacher shortage. So it's just kind of amplified the work, which is good. There's been a lot of requests nationwide about what's going on with rural digital divide and ending the homework gap, or ending that issue with digital learning with the non-connectivity. So that's been at the forefront of everything we've been doing recently. But really, there's two things I want to kind of update and kind of highlight, and then I'll pass it on to back to Stuart. One thing is we are doing a campaign called I'm a Rural Teacher, and I'll put the information in the chat for everyone to see. And we're taking stories from, right now we have 40 states that have submitted stories, and we need all 50 states. And we use those stories about how the pandemic's impacted rural teaching. And we use that with our legislative work in DC. so we connect a place and a story with people, and also why it's important to fund and to help during this time of need. So I'll put that in the chat and also put our website as well. So thanks for having me. Thanks for doing this, and look forward to hearing from the other presenters, and just keep up the good work, and thanks for the support.
Thank you, Alan. And I'd like to suggest that you follow National Rural Education Association on Twitter. There's some good things that show up on there. It's NREA1. Am I at NREA1? Am I correct with that, Alan? Okay. And also, there is a Twitter feed for I Am a Rural Teacher. I believe we've seen a number of them from the Western United States. So follow those. Those would be good things to follow. And I generally will pop something on there about Buttonwillow, just because nobody's going to tell our story except for us. So I encourage each of you to tell your stories. But what we have today are a great lineup of speakers. And I know I'm going to mispronounce this after I already asked her to tell me how it's pronounced. But Dr. Melissa Sadorf, Superintendent of Stanfield Elementary District in Arizona, and she's going to be presenting on rural school and district leader mentorship. So each presenter has about 5 minutes. Corey, are you going to start making a gong sound, or how's this work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be in the middle of being the human clicker. So if you want to be the gong timer, that'd be great.
Look, I just spent about 5 minutes trying to become a nice guy, and now you're going to make me become a bad guy.
Or give that job to Eric. Make him the bad guy.
Oh, Eric Bonnickson. Yeah, you could be the bad guy, Eric, if you want to let people know how much time is left.
I'm already getting the I am great at being the bad guy, so we can do it.
Okay, and Eric is the secretary of our SSDA board, so that's why I can give him a hard time. So go ahead, Melissa, go ahead and start it off for us.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Corey. I'm going to be talking about the importance of mentoring in rural areas where new leaders often lack those skills that they need in order to do the job they're being asked to do. They are facing isolation, and there's typically a lack of a network. My name is Melissa Sadorf, and I'm the superintendent of Stanfield Elementary School District in Arizona. I'm also on the Arizona Rural Schools Executive Board. My kitchen sink cabinet, we all have professional networks as well as personal networks that we rely on, and here are some of mine that help me to get to a rural leadership position. Some of those still assist me, but some don't have the background that I needed in order to be a successful leader in my new role. That role was superintendent of the Stanfield Elementary School District. It's a single site LEA, Title I, 400 students preschool through 8th grade with a 20% population native, heavy ELL, and a lot of migrant students. The first time I sat down with the previous superintendent, she asked me, do you know what a chart of accounts is? And I didn't at the time, and that was a problem because not only was I the superintendent, but I was also going to be serving as the district's business manager, and I had to learn that from the ground up. Corey, you need to click the slide. I was also the HR director, the federal and states grants manager, and I had all of those roles to master as a new superintendent and no time to take classes. So, next slide. My difference maker was my board president, and she set up a 2-year mentorship with the previous superintendent, Susan Skropko. And Susan and I met frequently on issues that were tasks at hand and time-bound, as well as looking forward and doing long-range planning. So that was something that was important. Traditionally, school mentoring looks at items like this, which are based on leadership standards, and they assume a division of duties and responsibilities. And they're very important for a foundational floor as far as leadership in any setting. However, a mentor has a different role in a rural setting and has a bigger impact. You have to be holistic rather than a specialist, a jack of all trades. And not only do you need to know the system, but you might be involved at a granular level. And so my question was, I'm involved in a variety of organizations, and I was being asked for help on a variety of topics by rural leaders. And there was no network in place for those nitty-gritty things, the details of how do I do my job, and I wanted to establish that for those people. For the Arizona Rural Schools Association, I started a monthly webinar series with Sean Rickard, another superintendent, and I also started a podcast featuring guest connected to rural education. But other than that, there really wasn't very much for rural leaders specifically. Carol and Jamie and I, as mentioned on the previous slide, created a network for rural principals. We're piloting this year. We know that we have a number of hats. And the first prong is those leadership standards, and they're going to be based on the PESL standards. And it's important to note that we're going to be talking about these through a rural lens, establishing that floor with newer leaders to ensure that they have those foundational skills. But also, the second prong was to create roundtables with those rural leaders so that we were able to offer them support in real time on rural issues that were happening. For example, online learning right now with no internet, declining enrollment, equity issues, reopening plans, and masterminding those, Corey, next slide, in self-selected small groups, and then bringing it back, next slide, to the group to share, again, in real time. A follow-up on these sessions is connecting each participant with a lifeline, which is a mentor based on their geographical area, next slide, and hoping to create a relationship with that mentor so that they can really reach out and call someone when they have a situation they're not sure how to deal with. The Arizona Rural School Boards Association will be the mentors to start, and then hopefully we'll be able to expand that. So why is mentoring important? Well, it builds capacity, prevents burnout, they stay, which we want them to do. It alleviates that sense of isolation and helps to talk it out. You have an exchange of ideas, you're able to navigate those challenges in a rural district more easily. We want our rural leaders to be successful, and in order to ensure that we give them the right supports and tools, we got to make sure they can navigate those tasks we're asking them to do. It's not easy to be a rural leader, but it really is a rewarding opportunity to make a difference in the lives of children in those rural communities. Arizona has some things in place, and ARSA is working, like I said, with Grand Canyon University to provide support for our rural leaders. But really what we're interested in is, what is your state or region doing for your rural leaders that's working? Can you share your successes so that we can replicate them or expand on them? And our next steps are listed here, but really we would like to work with others here today to ensure that all of our rural leaders in our Region 15 states have what they need to be successful. Successful rural school leaders lead to successful rural school students. So please keep in touch and let me know if you're interested in continuing the conversation.
Good timing, Melissa. So nice job.
And Eric, you didn't even have to be a bad guy on the first one out of the
No.
block. So there you go. Melissa, I believe you're probably the only place that's hotter than Bakersfield. I'm going to take a wild guess at that.
Maybe not right now, but we got close to 120 for quite a few days in the last few weeks. So
our 108 sounds a whole lot better than that.
It's a dry heat.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Melissa. And once again, she said the slides are there and all that. Corey is going to have these put up on the SSDA website so that all of this information can be shared, and that if there's something that really connects with you, feel free to reach out to those people. I think that's how we build those relationships that are going to build us and make us a stronger organization in California as well as across the country with NREA and other groups. So Peter, Mr. First in State for waivers, let's go for it.
All right, well, you set that up well. What I'll be presenting on is 5 things on how to safely reopen schools for face-to-face instruction. And I was hoping that I could go first so I could set the bar really low, and then everyone could only go up. And so following a PowerPoint like that and all that timed in perfectly to 5 minutes is tough to follow because I didn't time myself. I've been busy with a lot of stuff, but I'll make my excuses first and then hopefully pull it off. My name is Peter Livingston, Superintendent of Southern Valley Unified School District. We're located in the high desert in Southern California. We have about 835 students, TK through 12. And so we did get a waiver about 3 weeks ago now to reopen our elementary school. We kind of had to fight for it. We were in an area that was above the recommended count by Newsom, but our county health at the end chose to look at us differently, being in the largest county in the state. And so I'll try to go through these points pretty quickly. But the first thing I wanted to share was a quote, and I don't remember who told it to me, which is common. But it said, if you have to hold your reopening meeting via Zoom, you're probably not ready to reopen. And someone told me that, and I thought about it. I thought that really makes sense, actually. Just the perspective, if you're asking people to bring kids back to school, we got to show them that it's safe to have a meeting. And so when I say that, you know, find a place where you can socially distance yourselves, put your masks on, and then start your reopening committee. Because if you're doing it by Zoom, I don't think you're sending the message you want to send. With that, you know, in talking about that reopening committee, that really was what gave us the leverage to pull this off. Right now in our county, we're still the only public school to get the waiver, and someone asked me why, and frankly, it's because of the unions, the teacher unions. The CTA does not want schools to reopen in most of the state. They've delivered letters to Newsom that say that. So if they deny that, the leadership of that organization believes that, maybe not the rank and file. So we got our unions involved, letting our teachers have a voice in the process, as well as our administration, parents, classified union, and they all had a voice. We brought to them a draft reopening plan, so it's ready to share so that we could move through the process. Our draft, we stole from another district. I didn't have time to create it in a small district, so I found one through talking to people I knew are working on it, and that's what we based ours on, and then, you know, tweaked it from there. When you go into that reopening meeting, I would say go into it with a plan. We had a budget for suggestions, and we knew some of the things we wanted to do, but by having, you know, stakeholders involved that might have been a little on the side we had to bring over to the reopening side, we had planned to where people would give suggestions, and then through the committee we did those suggestions so that their voice was being heard. I wouldn't call it, I just call it strategic planning is what I'd call it. But some of those suggestions were getting outdoor hand washing stations for kids. This one came out of the committee, and initially we weren't going to, but it's the cost of reopening to make your people comfortable, was getting portable HEPA air purifiers. They run about $250 a piece. So again, we had that budget for one-time costs. Our bus drivers, getting them to drive was probably a challenge, but coming out of the meeting, they wanted just a little bit of support initially to take temperatures of kids on buses, squirt out the hand sanitizer. So we brought on 1 hour aides with classified, and again, they're getting that support they felt, and they haven't missed a day of work since we reopened. Next suggestion that I talk about is find out what your health department wants. Every county is a little different. If they say no, don't give up. Ours said no initially. We pressured our elected officials who pulled the county health director into a room and basically said they're different. You want to get sued by Lucerne Valley, or are you going to do what's right? And to make a long story short, we did send a letter from our attorney to give it a little leverage, and that helped too. Request and know your COVID data for your district, because in large districts, your data will look different, and it might give you the leverage to get your waiver through. Don't be ready to be left in confusion. My favorite quote, I was in a meeting yesterday with the county health department, and they said, I think it is recommended you shall follow the mandate as feasible. So if you think about that, you shall follow a mandate as feasible, and they think it's recommended. That was in regards to social distancing. If we had a sign language interpreter at that point, it probably would have been good. And then the county health department, we asked the state a question, the state deferred it to the county, saying it was their decision. The county deferred it back to the state, saying we're going to follow state guidelines. So again, you're on this, basically doing it at your own level. Eric's about to cut me off. Survey your families to see what their needs and wants are. That would be the one recommendation I would make going into it is, we had initial survey data, 62% of kids come back on a hybrid. It ended up about 80%, but it allowed us to plan distance learning versus hybrid. So that did help us having that survey information. And then that helps you with your staff assignments, different things like that. Yeah, okay, well, I'll wrap it up, and just have your news releases ready, because they're going to come to you asking questions, and don't be afraid to tell your story, because if you don't, others will hallucinate and make it up for you, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Stuart hasn't gotten back on yet, and I can keep talking. That's you're giving me more time.
No. Thank you, Peter. And if you ever get a chance to stay in a hotel, same hotel with Peter, if you spend any time down in the lobby, he's got a great Minnesota accent. So He can tell a good story too. So thank you.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, Stuart. You know, we do things a little differently out here, eh?
Okay, hey, well, our next up is Dr. Julie Bush, and I believe I'm the only other superintendent in Kern County that still has to call her doctor. Everybody else gets to call her Julie. But no, I had breakfast with Julie this morning, and she is somebody who, if you ever walk down the halls of the state capitol in California, Julie, they kind of run from her. And she's going to give you a good reason why, when she can talk a little bit about opening a brand new school in what, 4 years from start to finish?
Well, it was 4 years of advocacy and 2 years to build. So it's been 6 years in the making.
So tore it down and built it and was ready to start it. So Julie, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Dr. Julie Bush, Superintendent Principal of Maple School District, which is a single school district of about 300 students in the middle of almond orchards in San Joaquin Valley. We are located between the farming communities of Shafter and Wasco. Go ahead and switch it, Corey. So our school was established in 1910. In 1960, the school burned down and these buildings were built. Go ahead, Corey. When I got here, this was our campus and what the quad area of the school looked like from the roof of the multi-purpose room. Go ahead, Corey. It soon became very obvious that our campus was in very poor condition, with no air conditioning where the temperatures are above 100 often, with dry rot throughout the entire roofing system, non-operational fire alarm system, and a completely antiquated electrical system. Go ahead, Corey. After 4 years of advocacy and telling our story, that's what Stuart referred to. Really, it was 42,000 miles a year on my car and walking the halls of the Capitol until they all listened. We finally secured $11 million of state funds to rebuild our campus. Typically, schools use developer fees, pass local bonds, or use their general funds. We don't have any development. Our bonding capacity is just over $2 million, and our annual budget is about 2.5, so that wasn't possible. Go ahead, Corey. 2 years ago, we began complete demolition since we were funded. Since we were not funded for interim housing, we continued to hold school during the entire construction process. So those are our classrooms being demolished. Go ahead, Corey. These are pictures that compare the old with the new. Go ahead. Over the past 2 years, we have had to make numerous decisions to stay within our budget. It was very limited, and we ended up with less than 1% change orders, but we are very proud of our final product. Go ahead, Corey. Our previous playgrounds consisted of donated equipment and industrial concrete pipes. Our new playgrounds are the ones that are green, blue, and yellow. Go ahead, Corey. With the help of grants, community support, and donations, we have been able to create a functional, updated campus. For example, we got $40,000 from IKEA for classroom cabinetry. Playground installation by creative builders was donated. Also some benches, about $45,000 from Chevron for STEM equipment, $25,000 for rural farmers grow education for an outdoor eating area, and a marquee donated by our parents, which is called Maple Community Club. Go ahead, Corey. We know that it is important to honor the past, but now more than ever, it is also important to look to the future and focus on our vision of creating an environment that encourages growth on every level for every student every day. Go ahead, Corey. We have a brand new campus. Now what? A virtual learning, all virtual learning due to a global pandemic. Go ahead, Corey. Our original plan was to create small groups, split our students into two so we would have small groups of 15, use every single available spot on our campus, and open until the governor closed our doors. So now we are in virtual learning, but we have created a plan that will, right now we're serving students virtually from 8:15 to 11:45, teachers on campus, and our schedule will remain the same when we return to campus. Go ahead, Corey. Our teachers are on campus every day because they chose to be. They do synchronous learning with video recording and a variety of methods from 8:15 to 11:45. In the afternoons, they do small group instruction, targeted intervention, and additional support. every teacher, social worker, psychologist, and our special ed teacher are all involved in servicing our students. Go ahead, Corey. This schedule is very similar and consistent with all grade levels so that our parents can plan and support their students. Go ahead, Corey. We are at 98.25% attendance. So we have a couple people who have missed a little bit of school since school started. We started on August 12th, but we are seeing and speaking with each of our students every day. Go ahead, Corey. One of the key things to our success, we believe, is constant communication in multiple methods. We use Remind, we use our website, we use Maple Community Club Facebook page, Instagram, phone calls, letters. Each of our teachers has Blooms, Class Dojo, and Remind. We also have tech support available always, training videos on our website, instructional videos for parents, and a variety of alternatives for them. Go ahead, Corey. I know I'm going to have to finish. We are looking outside the box on how to spend our CARES Act funding. So for example, 2 of the things that we are doing is purchasing or renting, leasing 2 more portables so that we have space currently to put our 7th and 8th graders, but we also have a long-term plan to turn that into a preschool and potentially move our library over there. So we are looking to try to do things that we can do right now that will go into the future. The other thing that we've done is to hire 2 student teachers so that they can team teach with our 7th and 8th graders to give intensive support. Go ahead, Corey.
Time to wrap, Julie.
Okay, I only have 2 really quick. We've also continued our virtual expanded learning program with the Boys and Girls Club and are doing specific learning for the SEL. Very last slide, go ahead, Corey. It's just thinking about collaboration, for example, and this is, I just put in for Stuart. For example, this week we were able to collaborate with Button Willow, and talking with Stuart, he said the last thing we really need to do is get about 8 more of our kids on AT&T, and we're not sure if it's going to work because we're very rural, and we were able to loan them 8 AT&T hotspots so that they could move forward with that. So I wish you luck. I think that we are all transformational leaders in what we're doing now, and I think it's a phenomenal opportunity to move education forward.
Thank you, Dr. Bush. It's a pleasure to actually be able to have you share your hotspots with us, and we will try not to run up the gigabytes since it's on your account until ours come in. Julie has done a tremendous job, and she is very good at what she does and very dedicated to her school and her community. It does border on our school, and back in the 80s, we lost a number of students that took their families to Maple School, so I refuse to let them go now. Nobody has asked for a while, Julie, but with the new school, it could be a possibility. Next up is I'm going to call her Evangeline Visser, and I'm glad that you're feeling better enough to connect with us today, because I had heard that you were sick, and I did enjoy your presentation last week or 2 weeks ago when you shared about Nye School District in Nevada. So go ahead. Corey, are we good to go there?
I don't think Evangeline's going to present. So let's move to Stephen Wright from Achieve Charter School. And Stephen, I don't think you have a PowerPoint, correct? You were just going to talk?
Yeah, that's correct.
Stephen, that doesn't mean that you get 10 minutes now, though.
Well, that's a hard act to follow with Julie there, just building a school with no money. That's amazing, Julie. That's super inspiring. Hey, thank you all for having me. Yeah, my name's Stephen Wright. I'm the principal of Achieve Charter School of Paradise. We have about 230 students, kindergarten through 8th grade, 1 class per grade level. And I want to talk to you about our journey in guiding students and families and staff through trauma. It started when we started training in this about 2017, but then in 2018, our whole town was hit with the devastating Camp Fire, where about 90% of our students and about 90% of our staff lost their homes. We ended up relocating our school to a neighboring town and opened school about 2 weeks later. and have resumed educating students and supporting families in Chico now. And then we're getting ready to reopen in Paradise next year. And actually, we're planning to keep our site in Chico open also. So along with this, everything we learned going through that trauma, we've had plenty of opportunities to apply in the 2 years since that, especially through this time of virtual learning and supporting people who have already experienced trauma and staff who's already experienced trauma. So I was told to come up with like 5 big takeaways, and I could come up with like 1 million, but I actually distilled it down to like what I think are the top 4 that I want to tell you that we did. And number 1, I would just say connections are key. And that's going to be like right now during COVID and virtual learning, but all the time. And you will have, like in rural communities, we already had a lot of trauma in rural communities. We already had poverty and drug use and these other traumas that we were supporting kids through. Those connections are absolute key. Making sure that teachers can be connected to students no matter what, even if it's virtual, even if kids are spread across the state, because that week after the fire, our students literally spread across the state and across the country. One of the best things we do for keeping everyone connected is we do a daily morning assembly. If you want to talk more about that, let me know. I'll talk your ear off anytime. But I literally get up in front of all of our students in a few different groups. Like we have an elementary one and a middle school one. And I get to talk to all of our students every single day. A lot of parents join in, our staff. I get to model techniques for our staff. I kind of get my own little classroom for a few minutes. It's an absolute best practice for keeping people connected. And in the days after the campfire, when we were spread across the state and across the country, I kept doing that virtually via Facebook Live. Now, of course, we do it via Zoom, but that morning assembly, like key to keeping everybody connected. If I went to a new school or district tomorrow, I would start morning assembly next Monday, even if I had to rewrite the master schedule. Like it's that important. I can't imagine having a school and not doing a daily assembly with the whole school. And I know that sounds overwhelming, but I've thought through this. Like, please talk to me if you want more information about that. Number 2 thing, when any kind of trauma, you got to take care of your staff. So we know a lot more about trauma than we did a few years ago. Butte County has really dove into that. There's this thing called secondary trauma, where if you have kids dealing with trauma, your teachers are going through trauma. But guess what? It's COVID. We all have the exact same trauma. It's fires across the state. We've all got the exact same trauma. Your staff has the same trauma as the students. If you don't take care of them, you can't go out and hire another staff. There's not extra teachers out there just waiting for jobs. You got to take care of your people. It's like a triage situation, and it really is important. Number 3 thing that's worked for us is explicitly teaching self-regulation and self-care strategies to staff, to students, like explicit direct instruction. We did it this week. We did it 2 weeks ago at our staff meeting. It's a regular part of our culture now. 2 weeks ago at our staff meeting, like this was a hard start to the school year, right? We all started virtually. And it was time for our staff to brainstorm, what are you going to do for self-care this weekend? But this is a real part of our culture now, like explicitly teaching self-regulation. And number 4, and I'll end with this one, I might say it 4 or 5 times, but if you got something important to tell your people, don't tell anybody anything once. Like once you're dealing with trauma and the trauma brain, people are not there. They're not where they used to be. It takes a long time to get to that level in the hierarchy where you can actually think and function. So if you got something important to say, you better put it in an email. And if it's really important, you better probably tell everybody on your staff, person to person, spread the word through your aides that you know, tell everybody, send them a video if you think they might need it, then send another email. There's a saying that comes out of the military and probably other places, which is 2 is 1 and 1 is none. Like if you have emergency supplies, right? And you only have 1 and something goes wrong, you don't have any. Like same thing with information. Like if it's important enough to say, and you should probably also watch what you're saying to people during trauma, because if it's not important enough to say, just don't say it. But if it's important enough to say it over and over. It'll take your staff that many times to get it. That's kind of, yeah, that's what I got.
All right.
You know, I've only been doing this for a couple of months now. I should figure it out. Steve, were you in Paradise when Tim was the county soup?
Yeah, and Tim did a great job guiding us through that. But yeah, we were in Paradise that day and spent a lot of time with Tim those weeks after.
Yeah, one of our teachers had just left Buttonwillow to go to Paradise, and bought her house a week before the fire, and her parents lived up there too. So tough time. I'm sure that you're going to probably be a go-to person for Tim as we deal with maybe our third and or fourth district that's being burned down in California this week. So Eric, am I right? Are we about 3 or 4 now? So,
Yeah, definitely. We have about 17 that have been impacted, but we've actually burned down at least 3.
Yep.
yeah. So that's going to be a tough road for all those people. Toby Waite, I know, up in Fresno County, he's the one with that big creek fire. Well, it's a big creek fire, but his district is Big Creek. And then Mike, and I forgot his name, he's at Bonnie Doon outside of Santa Cruz. And he said there was no CAL FIRE people because they were fighting all the other fires. The community had to come together to save the school, although all the homes were lost. And I don't know if Mike's on here today, but I know I heard his story the other day. So you're going to be a go-to person, I can tell. So
yeah, we were just talking about Bonnie Doon earlier. Our executive director, Casey, has been down there a few times helping them out. And my brother is a firefighter, and he's down there fighting that creek fire right now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you, Stephen. I know that there's a lot of stuff there that will be good go-to for people who are interested in dealing with that and how their staffs are dealing with this. Melissa, since I'm not going to try and say your name the second time, we're bringing you back for round 2. You were so good the first time.
Okay. Thank you. A topic that is a part of almost every rural school meeting that I've been involved in the last couple of years has been the issue of teacher recruitment and retention in our rural areas. In Arizona, the rural schools really has acted as the canary in the coal mine around recruitment and retention. And actually now it's a part of every conversation across the state of Arizona. The Arizona Rural Schools Association has had multiple meetings with its members about recruitment and retention, and I've had a couple of podcast episodes focused on what works to get candidates to our rural communities. Some statistics, I know you've seen things like this, but here in Arizona, 25% of teaching positions last December were unfilled, and at the time, 1,000 teachers had left their positions, had broken contracts. We know that there's a downward trend in the number of college-going students that are enrolling in teacher prep programs. Again, not new information, but that projected shortage as a result is frightening when you look at the gap that leads to when looking at basic supply and demand around finding teacher candidates for our rural communities. Nationally, rural schools play a big role in education. 1 in 4 schools are considered rural with the Why Rural Matters report. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. I want to define recruitment. And when I say recruitment, it's not just about getting them to sign the contract. A successful recruitment, for when I'm talking about it with my groups, is a teacher staying with you for at least 3 years. And that longevity is vital to the success of our rural students because no one benefits from a revolving classroom door. There are a number of things that are happening at the national level to recruit teachers. Next slide. And these things are things that you're familiar with. You're probably already doing a lot of things now. But what we need to be more pointed about, especially in rural communities, is selling. We need to sell ourselves. So what are you doing to sell your school? What are you doing to sell the pros of living in a rural community? Are you pointing out leadership opportunities to your teacher candidates so that they can advance within the school system? Are you connecting your recruits with seasoned mentors to ensure that they feel connected to the school? I found that job fairs are also a lot about the personality of who's doing the selling of your district. So are you sending your best spokesperson to sell your school? Is your staff on board to welcome potential new staff with open arms and warm smiles? Have you looked at how to sell the spouse or the children or other family members? Are those intangibles a part of what you're selling? What about things like the slopes in your rural communities? Have you quantified and showcased what those fun things are around your community that they can do? Have you looked at financial incentives? Have you looked at selling yourselves as a fiscal opportunity for them? We have 6 of our 27 teachers here in Stanfield that have either an H-1B or a J-6 visa. And so are you looking at connecting openings to teachers outside of the US? We've had success bringing our retirees back to work. Grow your own, whether it's high school or those teachers that potentially are in your classrooms now as classified personnel, support staff, that's an area. But really the secret sauce really is what it comes down to is doing a job at selling relationships with your community, prospective teachers. Do they feel like they could belong? Can they see themselves as a member of your rural community? I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention that a retention plan should have, a recruitment plan should have a retention plan so that you're ensuring that those teachers stay and that there's continuity for your staff. COVID-19 has really put a wrinkle in teacher recruitment and retention, and we know that there's been sick outs, walkouts, resignations. We're looking at more openings, fewer applicants, and a need to do some things differently post-pandemic. And so I know that there's a scope that we are not familiar with yet. It'll be things to come. Here are some ideas that we're looking at here in Arizona to keep staff in their current positions. Telecommuting when feasible, being very transparent about metrics we're using to either reopen or stay closed or reclose. Constant communication is really important. We know that we have an issue in Arizona with teachers for job openings that has been exacerbated by COVID, and we would be very opening to continuing this conversation around your issues, your concerns, and your successes with recruitment in your area. If you're interested, please contact me so that the Arizona Rural Schools Association can collaborate with you around teacher recruitment and retention. Thank you.
That was perfect timing right there. Nice job, Melissa.
Melissa, I think Eric is like totally impressed with your ability to be right at 5 minutes and right on target. So, you know, everybody else, you have a pretty high standard now, according to what Eric will comment at the end of your presentation. So very good. And Melissa, I think that whole concept of our states working together, Alan and I were speaking earlier for a very brief time. Education is going to change dramatically. And if we're not ready to adapt and change with what that's going to look like, we're going to fall further behind. It's going to be more difficult to get people coming to our schools. So very good presentation.
Thank you.
Patricia Ramirez, I'm not sure where I can make a connection. I try to make a connection on each person somehow, but I've been thinking about one. I don't see Patricia on my Brady Bunch view. So
well,
there
hello,
she is.
good afternoon. My name is Patricia Ramirez, and I work at the California Department of Education. I work in the Rural Education and Student Support Office and work directly around the Title V Part B, which is the Rural Education Achievement Program. Go ahead, Corey. So the CDE provides support and guidance to the rural LEAs by ensuring all LEAs eligible for REAP are applying and receiving these REAP funds. And this includes both the Small Rural Achievement School Program, which is the SRSA, and the Rural and Low Income School Program, the RLAS. We administer the Rural and Low Income School Program, the RLAS, and the United States Department of Education, they do the Small Rural Achievement Program, the SRSA. We also ensure that the LEAs are accurately reporting their yearly data, which is collected through the Consolidated Application and Reporting System. And in our REAP program, our CARS pages have two required forms. There's a spring release and there's a winter release. The spring release is around May 15th. It runs about 6 weeks. And this is the application for funding. So for this page, this is where you're going to want to go if you're applying for the Rural and Low Income School Program. And you'll also want to go there if you have already applied for the SRSA Small Rural School Achievement Program. You're going to want to go and certify that you've already applied for that. Then in January, we have the winter release, and this is where you report how you used your funds. And both of these in CARS are required forms. Monitoring LEA's use of funds through CARS. So currently we monitor through CARS, but in the coming years, CDE is really looking to create other methods of monitoring. And this doesn't necessarily have to be like an instrument or an FPM process. The purpose of this isn't for like findings or to, excuse me, but rather to help the LEAs maximize their funding and utilize funds before they expire. CDE is working on establishing carryover and closeout in CARS also, because our goal really is to establish and create help for our LEAs so that they can really spend their current fiscal year funding. Because if an LEA is carrying over money, they may need technical assistance. They may not know how they can effectively use their money. And CDE really wants the LEAs to know that we're here to help them, and we really want them to utilize all these funds in a meaningful way for the students before the money expires. So if you guys have any other questions, you can email the REAP team or visit our webpage at the CDE REAP. Thank you.
Patricia, I do know we were on a breakout room on a meeting a few days ago. So yes, now that I see your picture, I have been on a Zoom meeting with you before. And I think it's important to make sure, especially if superintendents are brand new, or if you know any superintendents that are new in small districts, it would be a good idea to make sure that they're up to date and familiar with what they need to do with their REAP money. So thank you very much, Patricia, for sharing from CDE.
You're
Corey
welcome.
Henwood.
We're having a webinar on October 1st that goes over on how to apply for the funding. So if anyone's interested, we'll be sending out an email. But if you have any questions, you can also email anytime.
Okay, thank you for updating that, Patricia. Okay, Corey, the only connection I can come up with you in Utah is the fact that we just had a guy install our Vivint alarm system that was from Utah, and my cousin has been living in Salt Lake City for a couple of years. So other than that, that's my connection to you, Corey.
You got nothing, man. That's okay. I'm happy to be with y'all today. I used to sell those alarms in California at one point years ago. So glad to be with you today. I'm Corey Henwood. I'm the Innovation Coordinator at Iron County School District, and just recently opened Launch High School in our district, which is our district's personalized competency-based high school. Open with this question, like, how do we offer more empowering educational experience to both our educators and our students, especially in this environment? Brings to mind this quote from Tom Herrick. Says this, are we creating schools designed for students' futures, or are we still designing them based on the nostalgia of parents' past? And the poor design of our system's not the fault, of course, of our teachers or students, but it's due to the outdated system of our current education system's values, because we've got 21st century learners being taught using 20th century teaching and using 19th century curriculum and assessment practices. So what updates do we need to make? Well, first off, on our curriculum, and this is part of what we did at launch, to update curriculum from, instead of focusing on factoids and procedural knowledge, to what should be our focus. We asked our community, what are the essential skills students need to be successful in their future as they graduate? And their top 8 answers came through as our Iron Essential 8 skills to be taught and assessed throughout K-12 education in Iron County. Difficulty is, how do you assess mastery of these skills when, of course, our students are assessed on standardized assessments, college entrance exams, which focus on primarily routine skills that a computer can score. And the irony is, if a computer can score it, a computer can do it. And if a computer can do it today, it can automate it away tomorrow. So not only is this approach really dated, it's also, of course, unfair, as unfair as judging all these animals by their ability to climb a tree. And so we take a different approach at launch with more authentic project-based assessments where students utilize those essential skills in conjunction with their content. This looks like students taking on local issues, using the collaborative process, communicating their ideas, and creatively designing new solutions. So instead of chasing Singapore or whomever else on standardized tests, Ted Dintersmith suggests, let's change the focus of education from accountability on these data measures to make the center of education be creativity, communication, collaboration, and solving real world problems. And that's our focus at launch. As far as the role of the teacher, not only are these shifts more empowering for students, but they're also more effective for the teacher, whose primary task right now centers around content delivery in a lot of places. And it's no wonder some people have more radical ideas that might have our students looking at something like this in the classroom. In theory, taking the best instructor and making them available on demand to an audience who plugs in and sits quietly. But for example, if it brings to mind this quote, in the age of automation as we are now for schools, when we take a look at this quote from General Shinseki, which says, if you don't like change, you'll like irrelevance even less, kind of to Stuart's point earlier, that we need to be on our game here as education changes. So in order to avoid this tragic automation of education, we need to update our values and priorities for our education system. We need to start focusing more on those essential skills and things we can Google, more on project authentic assessments than bubble sheets, more being student-centered and focusing on students' needs and interests instead of our fixed curriculum. The key to empowering future of education is our teachers. Of course, growing up in rural Nova Scotia, Canada, where I grew up, we had an empowering teacher. My 7th grade math teacher told me every day I was smart and limitless potential. And of course, it was nice growing up in rural Nova Scotia where my mother was my 7th grade math teacher. But in any case, parents and teachers alike are great ways to empower us, even if they don't intend to. Sometimes they may strike us down. I had one teacher tell me, lacks creativity on my report home. And so I kind of made that identity for myself as being analytical and good with numbers, but not necessarily all that creative. And I've still kind of kept to that identity today until creating this new school with local business partners that incorporates much of what I've talked about: personalized pathway for students, industry connection, center around students, and project-based assessment. So back to rural Nova Scotia, where I grew up, the tidal bore, this really unique phenomenon where the waves come in the river when the tides come in so quickly. And people often will be on the shoreline and miss the entire thing, or poke fun at those who decide to ride the waves and eat it. So I guess I ask you, if you're interested in the future of education, will we be standing on the shoreline and entirely miss when things happen? Or will we poke fun at efforts to innovate? Or will we instead ride the waves and make the fun happen and make things happen in education? So that's my idea, is take on this different approach to education and design it together. And together, of course, with all hands on deck, we can ride confidently into that future.
All right, time to wrap it, Corey.
That's it. That's
all right. Excellent. Good to hear from you. Just wanted to let you know my son right now is at Southern Utah going to school. So he's
there you go.
Just down the street from you there.
That's right. Yeah, we work closely with Southern Utah University. So
yeah,
thank you.
And Corey, you finished. I will give you credit. You finished before Eric gave you the gong, although he just wanted to complete his sentence. I have a feeling. So, he wasn't going to give you any room to get beyond it.
Hey, it's all good.
Good job. It follows up with the idea that, we are going to have to be innovative with what we're doing. And in the small schools, we're going to have to find a way to make that happen even better. Our next speaker is Amy Wooliver, Superintendent La Honda Pescadera Unified. And I will tell you, Amy, that I know exactly where it is. It's somewhere between Santa Cruz and San Francisco in some beautiful country. And please tell me that your trees around you are still green.
Yes, you can see them through the smoke. Yes, I think they're still green.
So are you near a fire at all?
Yes, I'll share a little bit about that. Yeah, we're down in the Santa Cruz area.
Okay, well, very good. Thank you, Amy. Go ahead and begin yours.
So I was asked to let me set my timer so I'm not going over. Oh, forget it. I was asked to talk a little bit about a community strategy I'm using during our reopening planning and distance learning. My name's Amy Wooliver. As Stuart mentioned, I'm the superintendent of La Honda Pescadera Unified School District, which is a small rural district in San Mateo County. People don't think rural when they think of San Mateo County, but we are the one rural district with about 300 students spanning almost 170 square miles from Santa Cruz to Half Moon Bay. We have two small elementaries, or Santa Cruz County line, I should say. We have two small elementary schools and a combined middle and high school. We have great strengths of a diverse and resourceful population and the challenges that most rural districts face: communication, connectivity, and even before COVID, the ease of gathering in person as people must travel long distances to come together. We began planning for our reopening in June. We were behind our other county schools, mainly because I don't have a staff to take on these types of planning operations, so waited until summer. As our planning took off, I utilized a committee structure which met 4 times weekly. As committees took off and delved deeply into distance learning and reopening protocols, I ran into a problem regarding communication with a wider community. I was relying on written emails, surveys, texts, as well as 2 to 3 mailers, but found that often by the time the mailer hit the homes, the information was already outdated or plans had changed. These written communications were time consuming and expensive by the time they were written, translated, and either mailed or emailed. And the community was complaining a lot, so I needed to act. I came up with a plan to hold weekly meetings open to the public where parents and community members could get a regular flow of information directly from me. I called them at first office hours with the superintendent and later office hours with Amy. I wanted them to be informal and open. It was easy for me to pull together a 10 to 15 minute update and open the meeting each Wednesday evening at 5:30. I go through the updates and then I open it to a question and answer. I learned how to use the interpretation function on Zoom, which took a little practice. So I was able to have a Spanish interpretation at all of my meetings. Some weeks, parents had tons of questions, and other weeks it was really quiet. So my takeaways and why I will continue regular office hours going forward. As superintendents, even in a small district, many of us are behind the layer of principals, and our time in front of community is in a more formal setting, board meetings, district events, and such. These meetings, I got to really talk and share information and hear directly from our parents, which informed planning for my district. Secondly, there's so much we don't know and can't answer about schooling in the time of a pandemic. And we are wired as problem solvers. People bring us problems and we work to solve them. Being able to be vulnerable and for me to admit that I don't know how this will ultimately play out was very humbling. I would start each meeting with a statement such as, I'm bringing you information that I know today, it will likely change. You will also likely ask me questions that I can't answer, and I will be honest about that. So we had a lot of trust building through this process. Thirdly, parents were able to see how complex schooling is during COVID. They personally are dealing with the ramifications of our opening decisions and our closing decisions. They're stressed about work, how to support their students, and stressed about the pandemic, how the toll the pandemic is playing with their finances, their health, and their wellness. Through these regular conversations, they better understood the flow of information from the state, the county monitoring lists, and what dictates our decision-making, as well as the role of our public health officer in our school openings. It really demystified the process for them. And if a pandemic wasn't enough, on August 18th, we had to close we weren't able to open anyway because our county was on the watch list, but we had to close our remote operations due to evacuations related to the CZU August wildfire. We were closed for 8 school days, and every single family and 60% of my staff was evacuated for over a week, and many are still living in hotels because they can't re-enter their area. The office hour that was held during this evacuation was extremely well attended. We probably had 50 folks there. As our tight-knit communities, and we are made up of 3 different communities, had just been burst open and spread all through the Bay Area and the Western region. And accustomed to country life with no city noises, that night, families were stressed and tired. And after I gave a few updates, we just talked and shared about what's happening to our community. There were tears and there were fears shared, as well as many, many things. Lastly, what I've learned is that building a district community in a virtual world might actually be easier than in person in a rural setting. I may get a handful of parents at a district level event, 2 to 3 at a board meeting. We're not that exciting, I guess. Now we're the popular show in town. We get between 20 and 55 members at board meetings. I have our town council attends, grandparents, store owners. People want to know what's going on and they will engage if the vehicle fits their needs. And even though I've been in this community for 30 years and served in just about every capacity, I've never felt closer to the families and the community that I serve. No big presentations, no PowerPoints or data sets, just me, a bunch of tiles on Zoom, speculating about our future and chatting about our schools. So I'll close with, after each meeting, I inevitably get an email or sometimes 2 to 3 thanking me or providing a positive message from me to send to my staff. Okay, so how often does that happen to superintendents? That's all I have to share about that. So thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Amy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Amy, very much. Very good presentation on that. Again, having to go through those issues, multiple types of issues. So thank you very much for sharing that. Dr. Nathan Harrison is up next with Dustin Lohr on deck. But Dr. Harrison is Assistant Director of Jean Massue School of the Deaf and Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind in Utah. So Dr. Harrison, go ahead and take it.
Hi, everybody. And a little thing to understand about deaf culture, everyone calls me Nate. The students, the staff, parents, I'm Nate. It's a very informal thing, and I think it's really beautiful, especially considering small schools. We're not into the formality and the hype. Okay, everybody, this is a weird year, isn't it? Salt Lake City just had a windstorm of a decade, and we still have 165,000 homes without power in the middle of a global pandemic, in the middle of all the craziness. So who am I? I'm Nate. I'm Dr. Nathan Harrison. I'm Assistant Director for our Salt Lake City Deaf Campus, but I'm the Innovation Specialist for all of the Utah schools for the deaf and blind. I've worked both in New Mexico and in Utah in small deaf schools. USDB has 3 campuses, and we just started a little tiny baby online program. All of our students have IEPs or 504 plans. We also do statewide outreach to every school. Our current plan, we're doing 5 days a week, except for preschool, which is doing 4 days a week. But families have an online option, and they can do hybrid learning if they want, which means our teachers are having to do what's being called parallel teaching, which is the idea they're teaching class while a kid's zooming in, trying to do everything online and in person, because we just don't have the staff to dedicate some online and some in person. So we're using Seesaw and Canvas. We've got aides assigned. Looking at the numbers for Salt Lake City, we've got 115 deaf students, preschool through post-high school, about 20% online, 23 faculty, that's regular classroom and resource. We're making it work. Some things that we learned last spring, students can do it. Preschool students can do digital things we never thought possible. At the same time, for special ed kids, isolation and one size fits all is not working. One of our teachers said the coolest thing: school is a verb, not a noun. It's not about the building. It's not about the place. It's about what we do. And so I just really liked that. I thought that was a powerful quote for us to think. What we do is more important than what it looks like, what the building looks like, home or in person. So I'm going to recommend everybody that we respond to students with care, which I'm saying creativity, adaptability, routine, and empathy for this year. So creativity's first. This year is weird. This is unlike any other year. We're asking teachers and students, and especially our students with disabilities, to do things they have never done before. And we have to be flexible. We have to be innovative. We have to be different than before. A couple ideas to share with what we're doing. Our English teachers aren't teaching separately. They're partnering together, sharing students online and in person. Our math teachers gamifying their class. Our science teachers using mastery paths to allow students to work on their own way. Adaptability. Honestly, we're in person, but if we have some positive COVID cases, we're going online, back and forth. We have students who are quarantined. We have students who are isolated. We have to be able to change at a moment's notice. We're doing that by having teachers use online platforms, but letting them decide for themselves what's the best. We're also letting students control the pacing of their learning a little bit more. They can speed up when they have the time. They can slow down if things are crazy at home. Now, routine may seem like kind of an odd thing to say. We need to be creative and adaptable, but have routine. But honestly, if you move in person to online, students need to know what to do wherever they're at, in person or online. Some of the things we do, students log in to Canvas or Seesaw, Zoom every single day, even if they're in person. And we involve the online and the live kids in using Zoom chat and breakout rooms to try and make it so students are comfortable with their tools. And last, and something we've talked about already, trauma. Students are traumatized, and there has been job loss, earthquakes, fires, hurricane force winds, and for deaf and special ed students, they've been isolated. We've actually integrated social emotional learning this year, preschool through high school. We've mandated it because even the teachers need that. We're also letting students work competency-based so they can redo assignments if they need. It's kind of summing up, this is weird. We're not prepared for this, but we can make it through. And even though everybody's nervous and people can suffer, if we are creative and adaptable, if we've got strong routines and empathy, we'll be okay. Here's my contact info if you want to get a hold of me or the school. And the thing that I want to come back to is school is a verb. It's what we do. And if we show care and kindness and empathy, we're all going to be okay. even though this is something we're not prepared for, even though the whole world's on fire, and in California, literally on fire. Even if they're, one quick story, last year, we started online learning, and that very day, there was an earthquake in Salt Lake. This 2020 is going to throw it at us, but the nice thing is small schools, we may not have the giant resources, but that also means we're not lumbering giants. We can move and think on our feet, and we have to be creative. Thanks, everybody. Great to see you.
Good
Now that I can
timing
call
there,
you
Nate.
Nate. Oh, go ahead, Eric.
I was going to say he had good timing, and then he threw a story at the end. I was about ready to say something, and he threw me off guard there with the last story. But
sorry, I thought I had 30 seconds. Maybe I didn't time it quite right.
That's okay, Nate. He actually only said it for 4 minutes and 30 seconds, but that's okay. So actually, Nate, you were so right on with that. So thank you very much for sharing that. And I really love that quote, school's a verb and not a noun. So whoever said that, your teacher, you can say, hey, it's making it out across the country now. So excellent ideas there. And I think it brings a lot of what everybody else is talking about in a really big part. And it's claim it's what we do and claim it with empathy. Another good quote. So at least maybe I'm a journalist, so I just made it up, but it sounded good, and I'll credit to you guys. So, good job there, Nate. And Dustin Lohr, you're now up, Director of Arts Education and Title 4A. And Maria, you're on deck.
Awesome, thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here today. Let's see if this works. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dustin Lohr, and I'm the Director of Arts Education and Title 4A with the Arizona Department of Education. I'm going to talk with you all today about how you can maximize Title 4A funds to help lift some of the barriers that we've been talking about today. I hope that by the end of today's session, we can understand what Title 4A is, the types of activities that Title 4A can support. We'll talk a little bit about strategies to maximize funding and how to access additional Title 4A resources. I always like to begin by talking a little bit about myself. I approach this work through the lens of an arts educator and a teaching artist. That's the world I came from, and I grew up to be a federal programs director. So if I can learn it, you can learn it too. Title 4A, or the Student Support and Academic Enrichment Grant, is an entitlement grant awarded to all eligible Title I districts. It funds well-rounded education, safe, healthy students, and the effective use of technology. Big picture program requirements. In order to receive Title 4A grants, you must have had an active Title I grant in the previous year at the district level. The amount awarded is calculated by your Title I award, and we must award at least $10,000 to all of our LEAs. You can see here the types of activities that can be funded through Title IV. It's very broad. This is not an exhaustive list. I really want to pay attention, though, to this first category. Anything that is connected to well-rounded education is officially a student's civil right. So we really need to pay more attention to these activities in our schools, even during times of a pandemic. I want to give some Arizona spotlights on how these funds have been activated. This rural school used these funds to do a family and community engagement. They grew gardens, they turned these vegetables into instruments and made a performance. We had another LEA who, this is another rural school. They chose to partner with a dance studio. They drove their students to the dance studio so that they could have this education. Title IV could pay for all of this. Another district chose to use their funds to implement district-wide blended learning professional development. They used the funds to hire consultants, hire substitutes, send folks to a national conference, as well as pay for staff certification. Really quickly, big picture, you can maximize your federal funding by braiding your funds, right? Most of you probably already know that, but Title I, Title 4A, Title 4B, even Title V, RLIS, can all be blended together for one activity. Another innovative approach that you can do is acting through consortia. Title IV allows you to partner with your rural districts, pool your funds together, and create a universal plan to fund all of your schools. At the Department of Education in Arizona, we have lots of resources available to you. We share all over the nation, so this is not just an Arizona-centric thing. You can visit us at www.azed.gov, Title 4A. We have broken all of this down into micro trainings. These are short 3 to 5 minute trainings that literally walk you through every aspect of the Title 4A grant application, as well as the unique types of activities that can be funded. We have an upcoming professional development specifically tailored for arts and physical education teachers. We will be providing this exploring online best practices for instructional learning. We also are hosting a Reimagine Education with Title 4A podcast series, where we will be exploring innovation throughout Arizona and beyond, all made possible with Title 4A. That should be launching later this month. Your Title 4A allocation is for your district. If you're in Arizona, I have that publicly available to you. If you're not, you can find it. I can help you with that. Determine who at your LEA you should talk to and start planning. And of course, remember that your voice matters in this. All of these constituents should be engaged in the plan process, and you should be at the table too. Finally, I'm really hoping that this really quick 5-minute opportunity allowed us to explore Title IV at a little bit of a deeper level so that you know that these funds exist and you can use them. We have an innovative, multidisciplinary team of experts available to all of you. We are happy to answer any questions that you might have. We are passionate about these funds, and this is how you can get a hold of us. We are excited to help and serve regardless of where you are located. That's what I had to share with you today. I really appreciate the time and the platform, and thank you so much for all that you are doing for all of the students in Arizona and across our nation.
Okay, Dustin, thank you very much for sharing that. Those are some good areas and some great areas to address in our district. So again, thank you very much. And it's nice to have somebody from Arizona, another person from Arizona there with us. So Maria, you are Executive Director of the Rainforest Arts Project in California. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about the Rainforest Art Project.
Okay, so Corey, if you can pause the presentation, please. Thank you. Hi again, my name is Maria Titova. I'm an Executive Director here at the Rainforest Art Project. As you can easily tell from the name, probably we're an educational arts company with headquarters located here in San Diego, California, and also Northern California branch operating from the beautiful city of Chico and further east in Imperial Valley. In fact, we are a small team dedicated to providing unique hands-on creative experiences to schools, and we'll try our best to fit into this 5-minute slot up here. And I'm happy to introduce Dan Evers, our founder and CEO, today as a speaker. Hi, Dan.
Maria, and hello, everybody. About just almost 2 years ago, I received a late afternoon call from Tim Taylor, and he said we were all aware of the disaster in Paradise, and he said, you know, we need you up here right away. He says we're going to work on the food and the clothing immediately, but for long-term healing, we've got to get started right away with the arts. And how can you not respond to that? So we came up here, opened up an office, and began immediately started working with the kids. Today's students will be graduating into a world of breathtaking change and uncertainty, which presents educators with a challenging new reality. With the world labor market in the midst of profound transformation, it is becoming very clear that creativity and creative problem-solving skills will be vital assets for success. Creative exercises have long been known to build self-confidence, to help boost problem-solving skills, and help with concentration and focus. With all of the added stresses of our current pandemics, perhaps its greatest value is that these projects are great fun and help to keep students inspired and engaged in their studies. Next slide. Okay, we're founded by professional artists and educators to with absolutely no limitation on the potential of the kids. We place, you can imagine it, and we can help that become a reality. So it's always amazing to us how great their kids' imagination is. We work a lot in mosaics because then everybody gets to participate. Even kids with serious disabilities all come and participate. The lion at Wilson has over 50,000 stones from all over the world, polished stones. This is the Central Skateboard Park where our kids designed the logo. They named the park, they presented it to the city council, and helped with the mosaic murals from start to finish. Logos, we create them with the students, the designs and ideas. The students help us present to the faculty and the principals, and then we provide all of the digital art so that this can become part of their stationery and their entire identity. Parks, we've worked on many parks and sculpture gardens where the kids are involved, and in virtually all of these we have no vandalism, even in the rougher neighborhoods. This is in the center of Barrio Logan, celebrating our tuna industry, and we've had about 500 kids participate in this from 3 surrounding schools, and this was 5 years ago. There's still kids always there photographing in front of it. This is the city of Imperial, where they had a series of earthquakes that destroyed their historic downtown, and we helped them rebuild it with the arts, working with the city and the school district. Now there's over 200 art installations, all designed and built by the students in the community. Next. This is Paradise Ridge Elementary School, was Ponderosa School, and Durham School invited them in after the tragic fire. Their school was completely devastated, but they both had tiger medallions, so we used that as a theme for both of them. We built these benches with our community partners, and then the students got involved in it. We started this right off the ground. They came out beautifully, and the kids took enormous pride. This is the logo for the new Paradise Ridge Elementary School. This is Governor Newsom visiting us. He even got to put on a few pieces with the expert guidance of our student mentors. Working with family and adults, we teach creativity. In other words, an Adirondack chair has been done for 100 years. We did it with mosaic. We did it with laser engraving. We embed the technology, and we invite our parents in to really create a robust whole child program.
Time to wrap here, Dan.
Okay, Paradise High School, with this our creativity circle where all the kids get together and make the presentation to the principal. So it's a very, very real world experience, and the proof is in the actual product at the end. So thank you all very much for your time. We really appreciate it.
So I will just add the very final word. So we are oftentimes facing the question how we make it happen, and we realize there is oftentimes, again, the initial fear to get started on a large-scale project. So we developed the well-rounded, all-inclusive curriculum, and with a curriculum that includes individually packaged supplies, and it includes rich video presentations. We include professional training for the teachers, all guidance, unlimited technical support, convenience access. This is our team. We are here to support you every step along the way to make it happen, from the idea to the final installation. And again, thank you all for your time. We appreciate this opportunity. So we hope we sparked some curiosity. So let's talk. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you.
So Maria and Dan, thank you very much for sharing the arts, because those are not things that need to be removed from our school at all. So thank you very much for sharing about that, and hopefully you'll have some people connecting with you from here. We have 2 more people. Jerry Height, the Commissioner of Butte County Code, is up next with Mark Epstein on deck.
Jerry, I see you're still on there. Are you still on?
Oh, sorry. Here we go.
Jerry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's start again. Welcome to Like Chocolate Covered Broccoli, a fast and furious 5 minutes on why school leaders and teachers should be compelled to bring esports programming to their schools and classrooms. I'm Jerry Height. Sorry for the silence. I'm the commissioner of the Northern California Esports League, operated underneath the umbrella of the Butte County Office of Education. This is a Tim Taylor startup endeavor. We're operated in close partnership with the North American Scholastic Esports Federation, or NASEF. We support high school teams from Modesto to the Oregon border, and we're home to what is arguably the first middle school league in the nation, growing like wildfire. We've got teams from New Mexico and Canada in our league this coming fall, but we specialize in serving the rural and small school and are a hand-in-glove fit for this audience. Next slide, please. Wouldn't it be great if you could capture all the vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, non-fattening properties, and other health benefits found in broccoli from a Reese's peanut butter cup or a bag of M&Ms? No, I sure would. That's the provocative proposition that I forward with you today, that esports are akin to chocolate-covered broccoli in providing the cognitive, scholastic, and career accelerations in students who participate. Kids love, love, love esports, with 90% of the students identified through 6th through 12th grade reporting to be regular participants or viewers in esports endeavors. Esports is like candy. And the science, with nearly 2 decades of study under our belts now, has established multiple benefits that serve as our proverbial broccoli here. Visual acuity and attention are nearly doubled, scientific reasoning nurtured and enhanced, language learning accelerated, digital and print literacy markedly improved, problem skills honed and developed. Esports also facilitates math achievement and technology fluency, both deemed essential to mastery of STEM skills. Next slide, please. And esports are sports. They capture the same benefits of team as experienced in any other traditional sport. And this is what the research says about sports and learning, that if you play sports, you have a higher GPA. Can you back up one for me? Fosters personal growth, satisfaction in school, accelerates degree completion, and I think importantly, cultivates persistence, that gains in the internal locus of attribution that Pascarella notes. Next, our friends at We Think, Kat Salazar specifically, has spent a decade and has found evidence that esports and gameplay are beneficial to a myriad of job skills, those that are generalized as soft skills to those that are highly specialized, like medical surgery and flying aircraft. Esports has proven to be a career accelerant in her decade of study. Next slide, please. And importantly, esports gameplay naturally cultivates, a surrounding ecosystem of supporting roles that are career and college tethered. Curriculum, technical education, work experience, all can be readily implemented with transformational impacts to school culture. And this is the space where real learning occurs, as direct experience and practice are tied to subject matter and made more relevant and meaningful in the process. My favorite role in this diagram is this, of the shoutcaster. This is the modern day version of our, our traditional Bob Costas or Vin Scully, only this guy's on steroids and drinks a bunch of Red Bull. Okay, why should school, next slide please, I'm sorry. Why should school leaders care? Because 90% of your students are engaged in esports now. It's pervasive and passion-filled amongst them. Because it's a level playing field. It's blind to ethnicity, disability, socioeconomic status, gender, physical appearance, et cetera, et cetera. It's even blind to school size. Tim Taylor loves to tell the story about the continuation high school in Paradise, Ridgeview, that took on the Southern California giant Mater Dei in one of our esports competitions. No, they didn't win, but they were competitive and they had a great time, and it was a level playing field. 3, because it's good for the school and district. There are ADA accelerations to be captured. There are student and testing performance increases that are pervasively found. And because it's about the kids first, as the transformations that are occurring naturally as a result of participation. Next slide, please. How do I know if my school or district are ready for esports? Next slide, please. You start by asking your kids. Assess students where I'm absolutely certain you're going to find ample demand. Then ask the following questions of yourself. Do I have the space? Do I have the hardware? Do I have the IT support and the people around me? Who's going to be the responsible adult to manage students? And then do I have the wherewithal to add teachable content within my school setting? And then lastly, next slide, please. How can we get started then? And that's where I'm here to help. My points of contact are here, and we at the NCAL and at NASIF are here to help you get esports off of the ground. And best of all, we're free. There's no charge to join, and we have all of the cost parameters identified for you and all of the necessities and in a punch list that help you get started. And that's my presentation.
All right.
Okay, Jerry, thank you for sharing that. I just learned a lot more about it maybe about 2 months ago. So I am interested in seeing what we can do down on this end, provided we get the people who are interested in doing something like that. So thank you for sharing. And that brings us to our last presenter, Mark Epstein, from Director of California Environmental Technology Education, presenting on digital geography and web GIS.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. And then for the record, we're based in the Sacramento area, and we're a network on that. And as you said, I'm going to talk about web GIS, digital geography, something that is been around for about a decade, but there is a really lack of awareness of that by K-12 education, particularly here in California. And this is very applicable, be used in distance learning. And I'm going to sort of show some of the interfaces and uses. And I usually have done this in the past an hour, trying to squeeze it in 5 minutes. So I'm going to go from the easiest functions interfaces to the most complex. And let me see as far as, hold on. Basic set window application. As far as my share screen, let's see. And let's see. So the first thing I want to do is our structured exercises. And there we go. Are you guys seeing this?
No.
London's 1854 cholera epidemic.
No, nothing's being seen.
Okay, let me try that. How about that?
It looks like it's going to start here. It says you're starting. There you go. It's
okay.
up.
Okay, so about a little over 4.5 years ago, as the interface, as far as an interface came up that was very focused and very simple to use. And let's see, let me do this so that I can switch. And as far as on this is here, the layers, and let me minimize that. Okay, there we go. So as you can see, basically with this particular exercise, it's based on the idea as far as with the various layers of being able to turn the layers on and off. And this basically has with it so that the kids work as far as seeing relationships with different digital geographic files. So this interface, when it came out, it was very focused, very easy to use. So as a structured exercise, this is the easiest thing to bring in. The next step, as far as the interface by National Geographic Society, their MapMaker Interactive, and this is good for probably elementary and middle school. And here again, as far as being in and bringing in data layers, and this has within its library, let's see if that's going to work. If that's coming in. Okay. Okay, so here you go. As you can see, just the various layers. It's got about 90 layers. So when we were field testing this, the upper elementary kids enjoyed it as far as stuff. Couple of those teachers had made the point that the kids were very much on task, and particularly their hyperactive boys. The next interface I'll go to is the Google My Maps. I'm not going to go into it. It's fairly easy to use as far as on times, and you can access this. This is good for on-screen digitizing. We're using these points that the kids can put in point data and put in as far as drawing lines and polygons. It's a good way, particularly for your middle school social studies, to substitute for your activities of using paper maps and colored pencils in the distance learning environment. And then about a little over a year ago, is Esri with their ArcGIS Online has created this new Express Maps interface, which is integrated with their ArcGIS Online. But this is fairly simple to use as far as with both the on-screen digitizing. It doesn't have as many features as the Google My Maps, but I like this because you can integrate as far as writing technology and geographic concepts. And a couple days ago, I put this together of what basically your typical middle school student, 7th grader, might put together for their Islam unit. And this is a very common exercise. And my computer with everything is acting slow. Usually when you hover there, you get a pop-up which has a little bit of information. And let's see, maybe we'll go to
time to start wrapping here, Mark.
Okay, and then then I'll go to the ArcGIS Online, which is the most complex. And again, it's just a slow computer. It's not loading. Here we go. And this is the most complex. This is here with your high school science teachers, with the ones that where the kids can basically from creating tables and import this. And this was from a presentation that won the 2019 Story Map competition in California, where you've got the data from hospital admissions with respiratory illnesses and during the Tubbs fire, and correlated with the air quality for different days. So those are the main the main interfaces for that. So let's see. So yeah, here's my contact information on that. So and Tim actually came in, I guess it was late January, at Rudder Middle School, which is one of, and I was basically very impressed with what the kids were doing. So on that, so let me, okay, here we go, stop share. There we go. Working my way, I'm still getting used to as far as on the Zoom. So yeah, so this is a valuable tool to use as far as being able to apply some stuff for as far as distance learning and lessons that have inquiry basis and some critical thinking.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much for sharing that. Looks like an interesting product, or looks like an interesting way of getting kids involved in a different format, different way of looking at that stuff. So very good. So I know we said it'd be about an hour and a half. We're about 8 minutes over. Probably the person who's leading this thing probably talked a little too much. But I do want to say thank you to everybody. Presenters, we have some people on here who were not presenting, but please take advantage. I believe this is all be up tomorrow on the website. Is that correct, Corey?
Yeah, I'll be putting our recording on our YouTube channel, and I'll be sending that out to everybody tomorrow. And I will also put all presenters, PDFs of all the presenters' PowerPoints, or at least the ones I've received, in a Dropbox link. So I'll be sending that out to everybody tomorrow.
Okay, so on behalf of SSDA, Small School District Association, myself as president, Eric as secretary, Corey as basically the master of keeping us all under control, and working with our associates and presenters and districts. She's got a lot on her plate. I really want to thank her. She always seems so calm about it. And I know Alan had to leave because of some meetings, and actually it is 7:45 almost back in Tennessee where he's at. So thank you very much for attending today. We appreciate it, and hope everybody has a good Friday and then a good weekend, and we'll be back at it next week. So thank you very much for attending. Eric, can you stay on, or I'll call you?
Yeah, I've got to end the meeting for everybody, Stuart.
Okay.
All right.